Have I got an audience? Who's listening? Who cares? No answer. Who cares? Who cares about organic food? Who cares whether we choose organic or not? Well, I do, and I want to tell you a little bit about why I think choosing organic food is important. The first thing that I want to focus on is bees. Do we all know that if the world had to go without bees, after 4 years we'd have next to no food? It would just pretty much wipe out the human race. That's quite important, isn't it? One of the contributing factors to the decline in the bee populations is the use of pesticides. That's chemicals put on our food that we're ingesting, and the bees don't like it and some of them are dying. Another reason for choosing organic food is the working conditions of some of the people who are working in food. Even in the likes of Spain, where you've got hundreds of acres of polytunnels, the working conditions of some of those people who are working there is utterly squalid, and they're contaminated, they're exposed to huge doses of rather unpleasant chemicals on a regular basis. Is this really what we want for our people? Is it not important that we look after people and protect them from cocktails of chemicals? So just here in our local backyard, just around Bristol, you've got lots of lovely looking farms and farmland where we go walking and things. One of the things you may every so often see is rather brown, yellowy looking fields. Well, that's when they've sprayed those fields, so they've killed absolutely everything with a cocktail of chemicals called Roundup. It's a mixture of all sorts of chemicals which kill everything in the field so that they can then start growing. They then plough that field up and they put on it, they sow their things, and then they add chemical fertilizers, which are totally dependent on oil. Then a few weeks later, they add pesticides to kill all the pests. And then a few weeks later, they add fungicides to try and keep all the things. So this is another cocktail of chemicals that's been put into your food without you being asked. Now, maybe we think it doesn't matter, but let me just say a little bit about why I think it matters. One of the things that I think is going on there is that the land, the soil, the animals, the vegetables are becoming dependent on these chemicals. They can't grow. They think they can't do it without them, because if they leave them, it's a bit like a junkie coming off heroin or something. They're very dependent on it. And when you take away all those chemicals, the first thing that happens is that the land becomes very sick. It doesn't know how to survive without all those chemical inputs. So then it comes to a position of recovery, and this is where I think if you allow land to start recovering and you start looking after it, you start farming it in a way that is more what nature intended. That's what organic farming does. Organic farming is simply a method of saying it's worth looking after our soil, it's worth looking after our animals in the way that nature intended it, so that what you get is really good, nourishing food. And I think that it's time that we woke up to what's going on out there a little bit more and looked with different eyes on the land and what's happening there, and said, do we want those chemicals being used on our food, or would we much rather have a right, all of us have a right to know? Oh dear. Oh dear. I think that was the end of my rant. I hope everybody was all right. Sounds like a chemical cocktail going off. It's all right. It's all fine. It's all good. No worries. Thank goodness for that. Anyway, that does bring me to the end of my rant. But anyway, all I want to say is celebrate good food and try and make it as organic as possible, because it makes a difference to all of us in our future lives. Thank you.